Before we begin, I wanted to show you the Alamedas Bay here. Beautiful bay, sheltered in Long Beach. Lots of very expensive homes on the far shore over there surrounding the bay. It's a Monday morning, so it's not really crowded here. The sun is out, but it is not particularly warm.
Hello. First, I want to thank you new subscribers to my channel. I believe there's 71 new subscribers that have joined me this month, and my goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers. Today I'm going to talk about a recent event in Mexico involving Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. El Chapo earned his nickname Shorty, or El Chapo, because he's only 5 foot 6 inches tall. El Chapo was the 701st richest man in the world, according to Forbes. In fact, he even wore a baseball cap with the number 701 embroidered on it. I just finished reading a book, Hunting El Chapo, written by the DEA lawman that spent 7 years tracking El Chapo. He studied everything that could be learned about El Chapo, which included his entire communications network that El Chapo had set up to avoid detection. The interesting thing about El Chapo is how he earned his money. He was raised a poor person and believed to have had little schooling in Mexico based upon his poor spelling habits. El Chapo first came to be well known in 2001 when he escaped from the Puente Grande prison in Jalisco, Mexico. He had started the Sinaloa cartel in 1989, and when he was arrested in 2001, he was already the most feared capo in the Sinaloa Federation. The Sinaloa Federation was a vast criminal organization that sent marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin to America, Canada, Europe, Australia, and around the world. After escaping, he spent 14 years living in luxury within the Sinaloa region of the Sierra Madres, where he grew up. He was known to have controlled the police with payoffs, and any attempt to arrest him, it was feared, would result in a major gun battle, including fighting the local police. El Chapo's army was well armed and known to be very dangerous. In Sinaloa, El Chapo had a home and 5 safe houses that all included tunnels into the city sewers where he could escape. The front doors were all reinforced with 6-inch steel plate that would delay any entry into the house while he escaped. The entrance into the tunnels was from openings under the spa bathtubs that were hydraulically opened from secret switches. Obviously, when the DEA and Mexican Marines invaded and they were able to gain entrance into his home, El Chapo had already escaped to Mazatlan. El Chapo had a network of multi-tiered communications that were based upon BlackBerry telephones. The top tier included 2 loyal secretaries that communicated everything to and from El Chapo in person, and one was always by his side. The second tier included many trusted people, which included his 4 sons. The third tier were people that controlled major drug markets around the world. And the 4th and 5th tiers were numerous drug distributors that provided the distribution channels to individuals that sold the drugs on the street. After arresting one fourth tier person, they were able to obtain one BlackBerry PIN number and start learning who was up the ladder. Unfortunately, El Chapo would issue new BlackBerries every month, and any pins were useless, and the DEA had to start all over again. It was a frustrating exercise, but with each generation they would gain better understanding of El Chapo's communication system before El Chapo would distribute new blackberries again. After 7 years of studying El Chapo, they were usually able to learn all of his new pins within just a couple of days. At one point, the DEA was documenting something like 500 lines of text daily. Gradually, they were able to determine the nicknames of all the players so they could attach a pin number with the player. By studying the traffic patterns, they could monitor most of the business El Chapo was conducting. At one point, they determined that El Chapo was vacationing in Cabo San Lucas on the tip of Baja. Probably unrelated was the fact that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was also in Cabo San Lucas at that same time. A task force was sent to arrest El Chapo, but he had been tipped off by the local authorities before the raid and had escaped down the beach. This forced the DEA to rethink who they could trust in the Mexican government. From that point forward, the DEA would only work with the Mexican Navy Marines, which had a good reputation with the DEA, and they only briefed them at the last moment. By monitoring the cartel's traffic, they had a good idea that El Chapo was being kept informed of police action all over Mexico. There were daily reports sent to El Chapo of all police and military activity that was in the region of El Chapo. When the raid in Sinaloa failed to capture El Chapo at his home in Sinaloa, they expanded the raid to capture his sons. They got a tip that one of his sons' BMWs had just checked into a BMW dealership for service. The Mexican Navy raided the BMW dealership and did not find the son, but they found a number of armored BMWs and other very expensive luxury cars that were being used to launder money in the form of expensive cars driven back into Mexico. BMW dealership was one of El Chapo's many laundering covers. By monitoring the BlackBerry traffic, it was determined that El Chapo had escaped to Mazatlan with his secretary, cook, maid, and girlfriend. He had requested 10 rolls from a second tier to be brought to El Senor, which the DEA knew was the nickname for El Chapo. 10 rolls was 10 rolls of $10,000 or $100,000 total. Using the armored BMWs instead of the Navy vehicles so that Chapo would not be notified, they descended upon the Miramar Resort in Mazatlan and captured El Chapo at 4 in the morning while he slept. El Chapo was transferred to the Almolaya de Juarez maximum security federal prison. The U.S. wanted El Chapo turned over to the authorities to face drug trafficking in America, but the Mexican government insisted they could handle El Chapo's arrest and detention. They said it would take hundreds of years before the drug lord would be extradited. He was under a 24/7 surveillance with cameras that watched his cell. The only blind spot was behind a short wall where the shower was located. After about 13 months, on February 11, 2015, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman escaped a second time from the Mexican government, and the Mexican government was deeply embarrassed. I can imagine so. El Chapo had commissioned a tunnel to be dug from a mile away at a farmhouse that opened into the bottom of his shower stall, and it was out of sight of the cameras. El Chapo has been linked to dozens of tunnels under the U.S. border used to traffic drugs into the United States, so the skills with tunnels was well conceived. It was February 11, 2015 when El Chapo escaped, and the Mexican Navy Marines recaptured him 6 months later following a bloody shootout in Los Mochis in Sinaloa State. 5 criminals were killed, 6 were wounded, and only 1 Navy Marine was injured, and several other people were arrested. 1 year later, on January 19, 2017, the last day that President Obama was in office, El Chapo was extradited to the United States to face charges in New York. The question might be asked, is El Chapo and his Sinaloa cartel out of business? I don't know. Certainly El Chapo has enough money hidden away that he will probably never be found, and then he might be able to continue operating through his sons. Based upon his success with buying officials, I question if American prisons can hold El Chapo forever. It would not surprise me if El Chapo continues to operate from within the prison, and that someday he will find a way to escape, probably to Canada. But that would be a subject for a different video. If you like this video and want to view more of my videos, please click on the subscribe button below and you'll be notified when my next video is released. I try to publish a new video every week or sooner. Subscribing to my channel does not cost you anything, and I do not ask for a credit card. Subscribing just notifies YouTube that you want to be informed of my next video. And if you learned something from this video and feel others may learn something, please click on the thumbs up button, and that will suggest to YouTube that they should promote this video to you other people interested in El Chapo. Well, that's it for now. If you learned anything, I hope it is, do not sell drugs in the hope of getting rich. You might make a little money for a short period of time, but you'll end up in prison and your attorneys will get rich off of your money.